Hi everyone, my name is Kiran Kamreddy and I'm a product manager at PhoenixAI. In this demo video today, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure and use our just released PhoenixAI Cloud MCP Server. So this integration allows you to connect your PhoenixAI Cloud clusters to any AI agent framework, enabling you to ask questions in natural language about your clusters, tables, and more importantly, ask questions about your data itself. One of the highlights of our MCP server is that it has security built in throughout, meaning our MCP server never stores any kind of credentials. Users always authenticate using OAuth 2, and our server also has full RBAC enforcement when accessing data, which means that when you are asking questions of certain tables, it ensures that the Claude user or the user that is configured to the AI agent indeed has actual access to the data and the tables and the databases. Otherwise, the MCP server just returns an error. And we also have audit logs created on each tool invocation so that administrators on the Cloud account can actually see who is accessing, like how often a tool is accessed against the tables or the databases. So with that, let's get some hands-on and let's look at some of the setup process involved here. So as of today, the MCP server is already deployed and is available across all PhoenixAI clouds. There is nothing really to deploy or set up other than clicking buttons. Obviously, it's available, but it is disabled by default across all accounts. To enable it, so for example, here I'm logged into my PhoenixAI Cloud account. To enable the MCP server, you need to navigate to account settings, advanced settings. There you will see an option for enabling the MCP server. As you can see, the feature right now is under beta. So as we want to look at some of the customer feedback and using it and kind of gradually promote it to GA status. So here is how you would enable the feature itself. You go just check that box here, and the user is presented with a consent screen detailing the terms of service. And it is important here to see that the MCP server does not grant direct access to your data to any AI vendor. You can see that the MCP server does not change any existing user permissions or RBAC policies either on the Cloud account or the database account. And it's perfectly safe to use the MCP server, and all it does is it just enables AI assisted workflows. Also, you will see you can just check this box here as a matter of consent, and you'll see a prompt here saying that our MCP server today requires the users to bring in an IDP from their side, meaning the MCP server requires the OIDC enabled on the account. So just an informational message. I'll show you how to enable that on your account further. So yeah, so that you click this button and boom, your MCP server is now enabled and available for you to use. I'll come back to how to use the information that is here today. So now that your MCP server is enabled, you have to go configure the OIDC on your account. It's available on the same screen, but on a tab called single sign-on. As you can see, OIDC. Right now it is enabled on my account. If you click here, today you can configure pretty much any SSO provider such as Google or Azure or any other IDP that you may have inside your company. Our documentation has very clear instructions on how do you configure the OIDC to your account. It just has a bunch of technical steps, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to bore you with those steps on this demo today. But overall, you configure your OIDC here, and then I just want to highlight that once you configure your OIDC, it doesn't mean that your normal logins won't work. OIDC works side by side your existing way of logging in, so that it does not disturb your regular way of logging in. So you can log in via OIDC, and you can also log in via your regular way of user ID and password. OIDC configured, you'll also need to ensure that you have some clusters that are configured with JWT user authentication. So in this case, I have one of the clusters for the demo purposes configured with JWT auth. Again, there is very detailed documentation on how do you enable JWT authentication for the cluster. It's pretty straightforward. You log into the cluster and you issue a couple of SQL statements creating a user with JWT authentication. So once you have the MCP server enabled and you have the OIDC configured in your cloud account, you are just ready to connect your PhoenixAI cloud account, any AI agent. In this case, I'm going to use Claude and Cloud Cowork. How do you connect to talk to your cloud clusters here? So, once you have the red, I have the Claude desktop application open here, but the instructions would be pretty much the same if you want to do it via cloudy.ai. So go to click the tab there and go to customize. That's where you have all of your connectors that you can set up. Click the connectors tab here, and then you click the plus button here, and you can add a custom connector. Here you can give it a name, say something like Phoenix AI Cloud connector, or any name you wish there. For the MCP server URL, this is where you have to go back to your account. Remember one of the first steps where you enable your MCP server, you go back to that, and you can see that so we basically deploy MCP server specific to each cloud. So this documentation here would give you the specific link for each of the MCP server deployed per that region. So the reason why we do this is because separation of MCP servers per region, so that there is just more security. One MCP server is not kind of like collecting data from the clusters belonging to another region. So we have a per region MCP server deployed, and that is also one of the uniqueness of the auth feature. So in this case, I'm going to pick the Canada region because that's where my clusters are. I'm going to go back to this. You kind of like give that URL in there, and you just click the add button here. When you click that button, you'll be prompted for an OAuth flow, which prompts you for user ID and password for your cloud account. Pretty straightforward. I'm not going to do that again because I already have that configured on my account here. As you can see, it's the same PhoenixAI cloud. Once I have my MCP server configured, now I can start talking to my cloud account and also the clusters inside my. Now that we have configured the MCP server for PhoenixAI Cloud, I can now query my Phoenix Cloud account through natural language via Cloud. For example, one of my first questions is going to be, hey, what clusters, bases, and tables do I have access to? I can give a query like that, and it takes some time to understand the question, goes and contacts the MCP server, which in turn figures out what query to issue and what kind of SQL to issue to the database and bake the data. So it takes a moment. For example, you can see the process it goes through here. You can see that it has actually called a query called list clusters to get the data back. And meanwhile, go back to the cloud account to see what access do I have, what clusters do I have that this user has access to. You can see the user is Kiran, and you can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters that are in the Canadian region. As you remember, the MCP is configured per region, so technically Claude should bring back these 4 clusters. Let's see what it does. As you can see, the results exactly match what's happening in the real world. It did bring back KK cluster 1, XDay, TF, and it also gives the information around whether the cluster is running or suspended. You can see this is the only cluster that is running at this point. The other clusters are suspended. You can see this one, and also this one. So great, Claude has bring back the data. In addition, what is nice is it also, since I asked the questions about the databases itself, goes and looks at the clusters that are currently running, which is KA cluster 1 in this case. It does get back the information that, hey, you have access to the DB1, a database called SSB, TC, information schema. It also tells me a little bit about what these tables are. DB1 looks like it has all these tables: data, user behavior, weather data. SSB, it's a classic customer, supplier, parts, table. TPC looks like it's an empty database right now, no tables, and information schema system meta. So you can see it kind of took the query in natural language and got back the information. Now also kind of like ask me a subsequent follow-on question that I can potentially ask. Let's take a dive into the SSB database and see what can we do with the tables in there. So I just have this question, what customers, so let's say I'm asking you to dive into the SSB database. I'm asking because I know that I have customers table. I just want to explore the data. I just want to see which customer regions and market segments exist in the data. So I kind of hit that query and it goes through its process. It goes through a bit of a think process, and then it picks these tools called execute SQL. You can see the information. If you click this button, you can see the actual process it went through and what tools has called on the MCP server. But anyways, if you look at the results, okay, looks like it's bring back results. It says that I have 5 customer regions: Europe, Asia, Africa, and Middle East. And looks like Europe is my most popular region from a customer standpoint. From a market segment perspective, it looks like my customers are spread across 5 market segments, and automobile being the top market segment. Yeah, the results are great, but let's kind of validate if this matches the real data or not. So yeah, let's go back to the database, the cluster, and I have the SQL editor open here. Obviously have the queries written here. So let's see. This is like a simple query. Customer count gets the region. Let's see. This is like the simple query which distributes the customers across the regions. So Europe, it's about 1,022,000. Let's see the Claude. Okay, looks like information is exact, pretty much to the last digit. Asia, I guess 810K, 67. Looks like the information is exact. Yeah, obviously the results are correct. I just want to validate that. Now let's look at the market segments. I have a query here pre-written, so a simple query again. Automobile being the top, it's 1,028,236. It looks like it's an exact match. So, looks like it's answering my questions about customers and regions pretty perfectly. So now I just want to I'm curious now. I want to dive deep into the SSB database. I look at a table here called revenue. Here I see orders, a bunch of order tables. So I just want to explore. I just say, hey, which customer region? I know that there are regions, so let me give the query. Obviously, I have a bunch of customers in the European region, but I want to see if that is the region which is actually giving me a lot of revenue or not. So again, it goes through its process. By the time it comes back, let's look at what the actual query says. Yeah, this is the query. It just picks up the region, sums up the revenue across the line order table. It joins. Yeah, it has a join between customer and the order table. Let's see. Yeah, looks like Europe is still the dominant region in terms of the revenue, followed by Asia. Let's look at the results. Next thing is, I think the results are kind of matching to what the real values are in the table. So Claude is performing well. I mean, it is accurately generating queries, getting back the results. So Europe obviously has, I guess it's 3 trillion, followed by Asia, Africa, Europe, Asia, Africa, America. So yeah, it's kind of matching the backend data. And nice thing you see here is it also brings back some interesting information. It kind of throws in the percentages there. Especially when you're issuing static queries, it just does what you system. I mean, there's nothing about the percentages here. It doesn't give back the query because that's SQL. But this is generative AI. It's where the smartness of AI comes in, and it also has this brief description about the overall result, which is a nice summary, and just says it also starts with Europe generates the most revenue by a wide margin. You can see the percentages here, which is very nice way to kind of explore the data. And Asia, it does map with does correlate with the customers as well. It's natural. The more customers you have, the more revenue is. So now I want to shift the focus to suppliers. I just want to see who my top suppliers are, but from a revenue standpoint. Again, I issued that query. Let's go back to the database itself. Let's do this top supplier by region. I think going by the history, it should like match. Looks like 124956 has I guess like 40 million revenue. So let's see if Claude does the same. It looks like 124956, and yeah, it's like 40 billion. Again, the nice thing about Claude or AI assistants in general is like they bring back the relevant additional information even before you ask. It's like it reads the mind. Just asked who are my top suppliers. It gave me not only the supplier name, it gave me the supplier nation, it gave me the supplier region. Also told me like, hey, how many line items does this supplier is responding to. So yeah, that's kind of good additional contextual informational pieces to have, and that's the benefit and the beauty of the AI. So okay, so I guess I have been doing simple queries at this point. Let's ask a bit more complicated question. For example, I want to ask a question like, hey, for my top supplier in the Asian region, I want to see the yearly revenue and profit by the manufacturer. So that clearly is a complicated question. It kind of like joins 4 or 5 tables across different keys because I'm asking for a top supplier in a specific region. Give me the yearly revenue by the parts manufacturer. So yeah, it goes through its process. I will show you the real query in the backend. This is like the actual query. As you can see, it has a CTE, meaning it for think about it. You have to first pick the top supplier in the Asian region, so that's why there is a CTE here, and you have like a select query with a bunch of joins across the tables across multiple keys. You have like a aggregate and aggregates applied here. So let's see what my AI is doing. Yeah, for obviously it's a complicated query, so it takes some time to think through the query, and looks like it has come with the let me execute this query in the backend. So this is a written query, obviously, and our goal is to like see if the results that are written by a human written query matches what the AI is telling me. So it looks like the top Asian supplier is this blah. I think we have already established that earlier. This is the top supplier. For this top supplier, looks like in the year 1992, the revenues from the manufacturer 1 is 771, manufacturer 2 is 815, manufacturer 3 is 658, blah blah blah. Total is 3621. That's what our question was. Top supplier, show the yearly revenue and profit. So this is the yearly revenue on 92, 93, 94, and Claude again has like another table which shows profit. Could have shown a single table, but it just like makes it complicated visually. So let's look this map. Well, let's validate that with the backend query. So in the year 1992, yeah, manufacturer 1, the yearly revenue is indeed 77 million, and the profit is 755 million. So 77 million and 750 million. So it kind of like matches to the backend data, and Claude does a good job of like us aggregating the totals and giving you a nice view. And it also has like a brief description of explaining the trends. For example, it says that revenue steadily climbs from 92 to a peak of 1997 and then drops back in 1998, as you can see from the trends from here, like revenue climbing and drops. So yeah, so let's get creative here. Let's do something more interesting that SQL cannot do. For example, I just want to, because there are clear trends in this data, I just want to say, hey, can you create me a graph with revenue and profit trends year and per part? Let's see what it does. I just asked this question because I just want to get serious about exploring the data. So, it goes through the process, and then it contacts the MCP server, it gets the data, and once it has the data, Claude kind of like generates graphs using other tools that it already has. So while this query is running, I also want to highlight that our MCP server maintains a strict data access control. This means that only the tables and the data that are, let me quickly answer these questions. So you can download by manufacturer. and yeah, I just said top for this specific supplier only. Yeah, going back to the data access control, I was emphasizing that our MCP server maintains strict data access control, which means that only the tables that are accessible by KK are queryable from this interface. Example, let me demonstrate that. So for example, here logged in as admin, as you can see here, and because of the admin login, I can see other databases other than DB1, SB, and TPC. I have access databases like Bench, which has like a table called hits. I have access to another table called TPCH, which has like a bunch of tables inside it. And if you remember, as user KK, you go back to one of the earlier questions, I don't have access to either ClickBench or TPCH. So yeah, just so let me just ask a question about, hey, can you show me tables from the ClickBench database? Let's see what its response is for this question. I'm just going to wait until the response for the previous question finishes, and ideally it should, I mean, I hope that I would get an error that kind of validates our CP server's capabilities around. It looks like I finally have access. I finally have the graph rendered. As you can see here, I have like a beautiful graph that is rendered, which I can exactly see how the trending of the different revenues and the profits for each manufacturer having its own trend line. You can see the trend. You can easily say that, hey, the revenues have been increasing steadily until 97, and this is a big drop. And this blue line, the manufacturer 1 is the highest manufacturer, contributing manufacturer for this highest supplier, followed by manufacturer 2, the 5 having their own trends. So that's how you can see that our MCP server can go query different tables, even if it is a complicated query. You can see how results were accurately rendered back to the AI assistant. I want to do a quick check of the RBAC controls. So I want to try and access this ClickBench database, see what the result I would get back. Technically speaking, I should not get any result. It should kind of throw an error, and the error should set the RBAC controls are respected. So as you can see, there's no ClickBench database because obviously since I don't have access to the database, it thinks that there is no database itself. It just like gives me some suggestions as to, it thinks that I may be making a mistake. It's getting too smart at this point. But yeah, so because my user has no access, obviously I get this error, which kind of validates the property I was saying of our MCP server. Sounds good. So that brings us to the end of this demo. I hope you enjoyed this overview and you already have some great ideas in terms of how to use our MCP server to explore your data on PhoenixAI clusters. Goodbye.